I do not think y'all understand how fucking pissed I am because it was muted. Um, hey everybody. Um, we're currently on break week in the new One Piece chapter, and I'm trying my hardest to basically figure out or map out or really attribute what has happened in the Elbaf arc so far, the key events that have happened so far to the hero's journey. Um, it is my opinion that Shanks will return to the island in some form or fashion. But I don't really know if Gaban is going to make it or not. And today I'm going to try and map out the things that have happened in the Elbaf arc so far to this hero's journey. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the hero's journey, but basically this is how stories are told typically, in some form or fashion. The hero knows of the known world, then they travel to the world of the unknown, and then it comes back around, and they're masters of both, and then the story finishes, right? Um, right. The hero leaves the familiar world behind. Departure. The hero leaves the familiar world behind. Initiation. The hero learns to navigate the unfamiliar world of adventure, and then return. The hero returns to the familiar world. So in the Elbaf arc, um, Luffy and Usopp have known about Elbaf since like Little Garden, right? And then during Annie's lobby, it's brought up to Usopp again, and then recently in Egghead, it's brought up to them again because Dory and Brogy basically come to Egghead to escort um, the Straw Hat Pirates to Elbaf. And also basically alleviate some stress that they've been having on the battlefield during Egghead. Alright. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not Elbaf is a good kingdom or a wasteland, right? I think for Luffy, Elbaf is a good kingdom because clearly something's going wrong in Elbaf and he wants to fix things. But for a character like Loki, it's a wasteland because it's a pretty fucked up situation. He needs things to be restored, right? He was somebody who lost his father, then tried to seek revenge, and then in doing so, he got locked up by Shanks, right? So let's do the Herald brings a call to adventure. The hero learns that they must leave the known world behind and travel into the land of adventure. So, I think that you could say at the end of Egghead that Doria and Brogy are basically the heralds. Well, even though they're on a battlefield right now, they're like, yeah, we're here to bring you to Elbaf, right? They have a party, all this, that, and the fourth, blah, blah, blah. And then they get trapped in the sleeping mists along the way, right? Um, Maybe you could argue that Luffy may have refused it because he was a little depressed at the end of Egghead. He was really, really sad because Vegapunk had died. And Usopp, on the other hand, was very elated to see Dory and Brogy, his masters, he called them, right? And then they get to Elbaf, and once they're in Elbaf, um, Luffy basically falls into the underworld, right? Now, it is my personal belief that Luffy doesn't get a magical choke, but he does get some type of supernatural aid. I believe he gets some supernatural aid because, okay, it says, our heroes receive gifts from a powerful being, either a reverential figure or a supernatural one. So named by our good friend Joseph Campbell, person who wrote the monomyth of the hero's journey. Supernatural aid occurs between the beginning and midpoint of the hero's journey. usually about the time things start getting serious. The gift giver will usually be either a godlike being trying to help the heroes without intervening directly, or just a mentor. In the latter case, he may gift directly or fall victim to the mentor occupational hazard and bequeath it upon his death. So, damn fly. Um, so I'm trying to find a chapter. The Accursed Prince. It might be the Accursed Prince. This is very early into Elbath, where Luffy falls into um he falls into the underworld, right? Because he hears a noise or something. You can feel that. I guess he feels tremendous hockey or something like that, right? Falls into the underworld, and he runs into Loki, right? Now, I don't think that Loki is a mentor in any capacity, but he's intervening in a way to get himself freed and um to basically manipulate Luffy into freeing him because he has information about Shanks. I think you can argue that Shanks is Luffy's mentor, and as we know, Loki and Shanks have a relationship, not a positive one. He believes Shanks to be a coward, right? Coward pirate. Now he's like, you know, I know where Shanks is, and I know he basically came down here and visited me not too long ago, but you get that key or you free me, and I can tell you all about the guy, right? So this is the only reason why I think that supernatural aid exists in this story so far. Luffy falls into a place. He meets this extremely powerful figure who knows something about Shanks. Shanks being um, Luffy's mentor figure, and he's basically like speeding things up in kind of a way, plot wise. You know, as we learn later, there's a Harley image, and it looks like Loki could be in it aiding Joy Boy. We don't know, but we know right now that Loki wants to be freed, and he's willing to manipulate Loki. He's willing to manipulate Luffy to get it right. Either way, this item could in question be special, powerful, magical, and inevitably vital. And this is exactly what I mean. Inevitably vital. I think that the information, because right now no one knows where Shanks is. I think the information that Loki has about where he is, why he visited him, and why he thinks he's a coward is inevitably vital to the story. Chekhov's gun, yeah. I think it's a. I think what Loki has done has set up, in a lot of ways, for Shanks to return to the island. Because Loki could be a liar, and Shanks could tell the truth, or Shanks could be a liar, and Loki could be telling the truth. Okay, so crossing the first threshold. The hero must make a conscious, willing decision to embark on the adventure and leave the known world behind. This is the first threshold. The hero may have to defeat threshold guardians who are not necessarily adversarial, but do test the hero's resolve. Down the Rabbit Hole is a special case for young heroines embarking on supernatural adventures. So, I don't know if you guys are picking up on kind of the flow of the story of the hero's journey or what happens in Elbaf so far, but Luffy goes back to the feast. He goes back to the. He goes back. No, he goes back to the feast, and he basically wants to. He sneaks into the castle, Or's castle, learns about Loki and Harold having a monstrous fight, and Roto is carrying Luffy, Nami, and Zoro, right? And what do we find out? We find out that Scopper Gaban has been eagerly waiting to meet Luffy, or possibly Joy Boy. This person that Shanks has already told him about that has this white form who defeated Kaido. It's as if defeating Kaido either it's as if this is the first thing that he says, or some of the first sets of dialogue he says. I've heard stories about you, Straw Hat Luffy, from Shanks, including that you take care of Kaido. That's in the news. If you didn't hear it from Shanks, right? It's as if defeating Kaido is a major indicator of something larger to happen, right? And as we know, Luffy awakened his white form in doing so. Was Kaido in Wano for some certain reason? Seemingly, but it seems that like whoever was in Wano that Luffy or this white form defeated is a very, very big indicator that this person is to usher in a new age or something like that. Tear down the world government or something like that. Right? Yes. And here we learn years ago, right here, Shanks was the only person to stop him. Right? And so he's like, so look, even the Wicked wouldn't dare to release Loki. All this to say about Scopper Gaban, it seems that Scopper Gaban, to me, is a threshold guardian. Not necessarily an adversary or what does it say? Uh, Not necessarily adversary, but do test the hero's resolve. Yes. A figure or event that tests the resolve of a hero as he pursues his destiny and or goal. Destiny. Someone says if Luffy's destined to free Loki. The Guardian is not necessarily adversarial, but puts the hero in a position where he must make a decision that reflects a sincere commitment to the task at hand by providing a threat or bar to progress that the hero must specifically choose to overcome. In simpler terms, the Threshold Guardian exists to make sure the hero is prepared for his adventure. I think very clearly, very early on, Gaban demonstrates that. He wants to see that Luffy has the white form and that he has a good crew. Right? Hits him with hockey, talks shit to him, badmouth Shanks. Right? He's forcing this guy. He's like, you want to play around, but I'm gonna test you. I'm gonna test you. Right? He's got a good crew. And then, oh, he does have the white form. And as soon as that happens, he's like, I yield, guys, I yield. Guess I'm some kooky old man. When clearly he has an agenda, he has a goal. It's to see that he has a good crew and that he has a white form. That's all he wanted to do. That's all he wanted to do. Now, at the end of this chapter, we have the bad guys coming in, the Holy Knights. um, Shamrock and Gungo have already interrogated Loki, and then Killingham and Summers touchdown. And their goal is to basically create hostages out of the giant children because Elbaf has, I guess, gotten too uppity and sought their own independence from the world government, which they don't like because the giants are supposed to be the thralls in the war to come, right? Okay. So, land of adventure, right? The hero enters a strange, dreamlike realm where logic is topsy turvy and the rules are markedly different from the ordinary world. Carl Jung identified the ordinary realm with the conscious mind and the realm of adventure with the subconscious mind. one may meet their hero partners here and rescue a damsel in distress. I think it's possible that Loki is both of these, but if not, I think you can attribute the hero partner to Zoro and the damsel in distress to Loki. Right? Look at this. Luffy is down there with Zoro, and Loki's pretty banged up, right? Um, Zoro Luffy's down there with his right hand, and Loki clearly needs help. Luffy wants to free Loki so he learns information about his mentor figure Shanks. And Zoro's like, before we do anything, let's just make sure this is a good idea. Which I don't think it is because I've heard nothing but horrible things about this guy. All right, they get into arguments, all this, that, and the fourth, right? Then Loki's up, and Loki causes a little bit of ruckus once he's freed. Now, the spiritual death and rebirth represents a symbolic death for the hero. The hero is defeated and killed, their flesh scattered, ready to be reborn and emerge as a new person. If you think the symbolic death ought to come later, don't worry, the writer's journey omits this step altogether in favor of a resurrection step just before the end. A more contemporary interpretation of this step is that the hero taken down and demoralized by the big debt. A more contemporary interpretation of this step is that the hero is taken down and demoralized by the big bad and hits rock bottom without actually dying, although this can be caused by someone close to them dying. Afterwards, they have an important revelation, giving them a final bit of character development and restoring their resolve. Part of this step involves the hero losing the guide. So, personally, what I think is happening currently is um I think currently that Luffy basically being getting the absolute shit beaten out of him by Emu. It's his spiritual death and rebirth, right? And it's bad. It's real bad. He's not stabbed once, he's stabbed twice. Oh man, can that load? Of course. Bro. Right. Right. This is the first time Luffy gets stabbed. Things are not looking good for Luffy at all in any capacity, right? Luffy's getting put. I'll punch you niggas through the ring. Luffy's getting put through the ringer right now, right? And we also get inferences between Shanks and Loki, who were at odds. They have two different goals. It seems that Shanks wants to have Loki for the war to come, and Loki really don't give a fuck about his life because his father died and his role model was killed. And he's like, I want to avenge my father. The world government is nothing to trust. When I have my strength that I have amassed, I'm going to take the war straight to him. And Shanks is like, nah, you have to think about this. You have to think. We have to play strategically. And he's all, I'm actually in favor of Loki's point of view because Loki's willing to throw himself on the line, whereas Shanks seems very strategic and tactical, and he's willing to lock up an innocent man to use him for the war effort. I think it's pretty fucked up. So Everyone's going through fights, and out of nowhere, Gaban comes in and saves Luffy. Right? He comes in, and it looks like he cut both. Looks like he cut through. Right? You see the tree and Luffy in the middle, cuts through them both. Now, I said that I think that Luffy is currently hitting rock bottom, and I don't think he's going to die. And it says, though this can be caused by someone close to them dying. I do think that Gaban is going to die. I think it's very, very possible. And it says, part of this step involves the hero losing the guide. I think Gaban and Shanks have a very close relationship. I think that in buying Luffy time, Gaban may die. And I think that Shanks will appear. That Shanks will arrive. And I think that it's very possible that Shanks may justify Gaban's death, and this being for some all greater plan or greater purpose. And I don't know how good that is. I think it's strong writing, but I think that Luffy and Shanks might fundamentally disagree. I think Luffy will take it upon himself to be stronger, or he say that he needs to get stronger. But equally, I think that Shanks will just be like, "Oh, this was all written, this, that, and the fourth, da da da." Gaban went to Laugh Tale, so he knew the risks that need to be taken, and we'll see. We shall see. I have no clue what else can happen. Um, you know, if tests, allies, and enemies is to happen next, I think it's very, very possible that Shanks might be this goddess figure that comes in. A figure that serves as inspiration for the hero, often a love interest and or another heroic figure they admire. Who knows? Shanks being God King and all and being the strongest character, the character who's portrayed as a coward through the lens of somebody like Loki might come in and save Gaban. I think that's very possible. But I do think that Shanks is going to return to the island. So that's my breakdown of basically the hero's journey. Everyone should check out this website, TV Tropes. It's just really, really good to help you pick up on things when it comes to writing if you're really, really into that kind of stuff. But yeah, I want to say that Dawn Dusk or Luna Pina Art um just did a video on this subject. I'm gonna check it out, but I'm a strong believer that Shanks is going to return, and depending on how strong or weak Shanks is, Gaban will live.